Okay, Jungbir, I think we're going to start.
Sure.
I welcome you here again, and it's going to be recorded, so our GCI members going to see that later as well. And we are going to talk with Jungbir Singh, director of Çelebi Aviation India, and also is commerce graduate of the University of Delhi and having MBA degree from Loyola University of Chicago, and it's the largest aviation logistics company in India, and they also operate the only air cargo terminal in Delhi, and all the it's amazing entrepreneur, good friend of us. Jungbir, welcome again. And how are you doing? How is the situation in India right now in this world's crisis?
Well, thank you for getting me on to this meeting and conversation and dialogue. As far as India is concerned, I think so. India is a country which anyway has its own ecosystem and its own problems. But we are as much in the dark as the rest of the world. So I think this pandemic is become a common denominator. It doesn't matter if you are developed or a developing nation. You're both facing the same problem. So nobody is in any better situation than the other. So if there is a unifying factor across the world, however dramatic and dangerous as it may sound, but it is the disease which has become the common denominator for everybody. So it doesn't matter anymore that how rich or poor a country is. The problem is the same.
Yeah, it's a global change period. And how's the economy in India right now? What do you see as a big entrepreneur and leader?
Well, thing is, right now it's very difficult to ascertain. So this is strictly my opinion. I do not believe that if we take quarter one, quarter two GDP figures, they absolutely mean nothing. For the reason being is there has been no economic activity. We stepped into a world in the end of January, February across the world where consumption or the plug was just pulled out of economic activity. So in some countries, there must have been an industrial slowdown. Some was growing, some was better. But here across the board, everything stopped, you know. So it wasn't that the banks were failing. It wasn't that there was less consumption. They were all doing very well. But if you take economic activity to a stop, we are there. Now, the question is when it restarts, firstly, to get out of inertia is one problem. The second is when you restart, you don't know who has survived and who hasn't survived. Your guess and our guess is probably the same. Looking at India strictly, I think that India is densely covered with small enterprise, medium and small enterprise. These are very small cottage industrial units which are invariably run with 10 to 12 to 15 personnel, sometimes through unorganized labor, capital, maybe also sourced from unorganized market, but they run from a month-to-month cycle. So we don't know as to how many of them will come back. And they are one of the largest employers of most of the unskilled labor in India. Having said that, we have very large tech sector. And across the world, and I'm sure even Russia would face the same, I believe strongly that all the startups who were running on VC money, I think it's over for them. There's no more free money going to be coming, hoping that you get some market capitalization. So if you have a burn rate for another 2 years, I think all that money is dried up now. So I think those companies are going to face a lot of problems because now it will come back to how much economic activity you're going to have and how many people are you going to occupy. But at the end of the day, it's also going to depend on are you making money or you're not. So market valuation and capitalization, I think will have secondary meaning. In India, in this whole traumatic experience, I believe we have one silver lining. And that is India is one of the largest importers of crude oil in the world. We're not self-sustaining. So crude oil, has taken a double hit. Not only has the demand dried up, but the price also fell out because of, Russia OPEC problems. So that, I believe, will help us take some of the shock. So we don't have the demand right now, but as India, the demand picks up, the price of crude, I would not believe can ever go upwards of 28 to $30 a barrel, even in the future, at least for the next 12 to 14 months. So that might help us absorb some of the economic, what do you call, stress, but it's conjuncture, I'm presuming that as the situation is today, if we have a second wave tomorrow, all bets are off again. We don't know which way we're going.
Jungbir, and how does the government support people and business owners?
You see, every country has its own yardstick. India is not a rich country, so there are no free handouts. We have a very large population who just, to make them survive, I think the government has extended itself remarkably well. It's going to be by debt financing. We do not have any reserves, but money is being poured into people just to sustain life. As far as the business front is concerned, I think there are some options that you may get some credit extensions, you may get some tax extensions, but they won't be tax-free or credit-free. The credit can be postponed, but cannot be deferred infinitely. So unlike what the West or the United States has done in putting money into the hands of the individual entrepreneurs, that can't happen here because we don't have it to give away. So we have a very large population, by and large, who most of them are below the poverty line. So it's thin, and it's a very tough decision, and it's very complex in India. So India is not a unified country. It's like 35 countries dealing together, because even business styles of working in each province are very different. So very challenging, but I think like again I said, this I can only I'm commenting on this as the situation exists today, hoping that we flatten the curve. Should that change, then all predictions are off. So if tomorrow India becomes a secondary industrial production base outside of China, again, then we have a better chance of survival. And that's where we are at.
Yeah. And what kind of trends do you see, economic trends or business trends? I know there are a lot of companies and businesses are still growing. Could you tell us a little bit about that in India?
So the good thing in India is, unlike China, India is dependent on domestic consumption. And that's the fundamental difference between India and China. So China is a very big power production house, but the backbone of China is exports or overseas consumption. On the other hand, India is a production house, but nowhere close to China. But the Indian economy is driven substantially by domestic consumption. So a lot of companies will be driven by domestic consumption, which in turn is driven by how much revenue reaches in the hands of the people if they have a job, and that inevitable cycle. So the companies, I think, in India will still do well, but like I said, I would not buy into futuristic technology companies. I would take a step back and still look for fundamental companies, a better delivery, better service, fast-moving consumer good, FMCG, transportation will do well. I think alternative energy will do well. And my reason for alternative energy is that this pandemic has given the whole population to see how climate change works. So in India, we are plagued with pollution. So by being incarcerated for the last 2 months, we have actually seen what clean air looks like. So, when you see before and after, so when you talk about climate change, everybody predicts, if we cut down hydrocarbon consumption, the air will get cleaner, but we don't know how it would look. So we are in the before situation, and we presume, so climate change would have been slower. I think by this cataclysmic event, we have seen the after effect in the same population. And now so the change or the metamorphosis towards climate change will be accelerated. And that means we are going to be moving towards a lot of pro climate choices. I would think hydrocarbon usage would go down very consciously by each consumer. So I would think lithium ion batteries and to that effect have a great future in India.
Jungbir, and you are a successful entrepreneur. You are responsible for other employees, and you look very peaceful and calm in this situation. And this interview, going to watch a lot of young people who are a little bit emotionally stuck and feel not really good. What would you recommend to them?
Firstly, if you're being recorded, you should never look very emotionally disturbed. Otherwise, I think that'll be a bad recording. The second part being that I have no choice in the matter, and this is not exclusively to my industry. So rather than, we are distressed, we have very large employee base and we have to make ends meet. The thing is, by being disturbed, I don't think it's going to solve the situation. So we face every day. And I strictly believe that in every event, there is an opportunity, So I mean, it may not be the correct analogy, but war invariably built the greatest empires afterwards. This is an event which none of the world has seen. So nobody has a handbook. So let's put it this way. For all the young people, I do not think there could be a better opportunity. Otherwise, a lot of arenas were taken over by the big conglomerates. This is like everybody's operating system has been rebooted. This is Y2K. We don't know which computer is going to come on, which is not going to come on. So for the young people, if they have an idea, they have a fantastic chance now, right? Because the opportunity table has become same for everybody.
Yeah. And what is success for you?
Oh, well, success for me, without a doubt, monetary success is a great yardstick, but it's not the only yardstick. So the thing is, if you establish a business and you can continually change it with the time, that is success for me.
Jungbir, and what would you recommend to young people? Maybe some educational courses, or what kind of skills and knowledges they should get to be productive and successful in their future, in their career and business?
So, strictly looking at it, what happens is invariably after a certain event, a lot of interest will be levied in that side. And what I'm trying to say is, because this is a pandemic, it's a medical event. So you'll find a lot more interest in prevention, disease control, looking for new medicine and, ways of evacuating it faster. So that would be one aspect of it. I think the other aspect of what people would look is to find better efficiency. You knew that right before this pandemic, pollution and one of the things, ocean pollution, plastics, hydrocarbons was a big issue. I think the newer generation, if it could find solutions to that, I think it would resolve half our problems. I don't think that pandemics are over across the world. This is an event that's going to happen. So if the newer generation can find ways that we can deal with the future challenges, and these things could take any form, but if we are better prepared for it, I think that's the way to go. So a substantial amount of resources across the world are going to be focused towards preparing for future challenges. And it's only the younger generations who can provide the right answers for it, because this is a dynamic and fluid situation. So younger generation is more apt of grasping how the world will move forward rather than the older ones, because we've already been ingrained in a way of doing business and discharging our responsibilities. But the younger ones are more fluid. So that's the huge advantage they have.
And how is your day look like? What keep you productive? What keep you full of energy? Maybe you
Well,
have some morning rituals or habits.
habits is I exercise every day, come what may. So without a doubt, and now that I can't go out to, play golf, I shoot and I do all those things. But since all that got prevented, but it didn't stop my daily routine. So you create your own ecosystem at home, and whatever area you have, and try and make sure. And a lot of that sort of keep my. So for me, it's been discipline and a little bit of routine, which keeps it all together. If you get up at your prescribed time and you do that and you fix it, and since you have a lot more time at hand, you use it efficiently for things you had no time for before, reading a lot more, maybe a hobby, but that's the only way. But if you're just going to idle and waste it away, I think it could lead to anxiety and depression. Again, this is my opinion. I know lots of people who can just sit in front of the television and they're fine, they're not ill. So everybody has to find their own nirvana.
Jungbir, and you are the director of the largest aviation logistics company in India. And why do you do that kind of business? Because I know a lot of successful businesses are not doing just for money. Do you have some mission or like some big goal you're doing that for?
Let me tell you this is how I believe it. This may come a little bit of a surprise to you, but I don't believe there's any grand design in our lives. I did start out to be an investment banker, and across the way, aviation came, and I could have exited it after establishing the company, but I enjoyed it so much that I got passionate about it. So the answer to your question is, we make grand plans, but there's a huge element we don't know of our lives. You may really love a girl you see, but you don't know if you're going to marry her or not. So the odds of that are the same. So you may want to be a nuclear physicist, but you could be a great musician. So I think you should, between what you really enjoy and what we call in India karma, we should let them decide it a little bit and not, stress too much about it. Life finds its way.
And you have a very nice, successful dad as well. I know him personally, Dalbir. And could you tell us a little bit about your role models and mentors? Do you have any?
Well, I've been fortunate enough. I've had in our family, whether it was my grandfather or my father, everyone carved their own lives out. So there were no handouts, there were no free lunches. And everybody, even in my extended family, everybody went out and educated themselves and went to find their own way in life. And I think that's the key to it, that as a family, you support each other. But we're a family that is heavily influenced by the armed forces. And what that I think leads to is discipline. And there's a certain hierarchy and you respect it. And I think that makes life just a little more easier to accept. There's no great secret.
Janbir, and there are a lot of challenges you had in your own life, in your professional and personal life, and this is not first one like crisis. And you mentioned that crises have two meanings, like opportunity and something not really good. How can you see the opportunities? How can you improve your and strengthen your mind to see opportunities around?
The thing is, because firstly, the first and foremost thing you look at is that there is a financial, you want to save yourself from financial ruin. And at the same time, with whatever you have left in your budget and structure, you try and introspect and see if you can turn it around and try and make a forecast. There are, without a doubt, there's going to be enormous amounts of failure in it. But coming back to the industry I'm involved with, I know aviation is never going to stop. Aviation will be there, but we have 7,000 people, of which 4,000, and we are open 24/7, 365. We never shut. Planes never stop landing in India. Unlike the West where the airport shuts. In India, it never does. So our offices are open all the time. There is no national holiday for us also. So, but at the same time, I know the traffic is going to be down. Now, how do I support these large amounts of families? So I have to come up with a solution and try and sustain it. And then at the same time, we have to see what's happening across the world. So it may be outside the purview of what I do, but if it is substantially related and I can come in, then we would make an attempt for that. And that's the way I look at it. So we know, just to give you an example, we know air cargo, the prices have gone up 40%. So we own the cargo terminal, but we don't use cargo freighters. Now this is where we're stepping in, because there's so many planes lying on the ground, and without using more financial exposure for ourselves, we're trying to venture into that, because the knowledge base we have on air cargo, nobody has that. We surpass everybody. So this is how you try, and it'll be amazing. You got to talk to anybody and everybody in the company you have around you, however junior or senior. Sometimes the most unlikely person can give you an idea which we miss. And the reason for that is, over the years, we start thinking in a box. We can't think outside of it. So that's where we need the younger lot to come there and help us come out of the box. And sometimes you miss the obvious. And that's why we need the absolute fresh blood to teach us all over again. So there's a huge unlearning going on right now also.
Jungbir, you mentioned that you have physical activities every single day. And I think that the key to success in achieving any goal is personal and professional development. Never like constant and never ending process. And how do you develop yourself? I know you study a lot, you read a lot. Maybe you can share some of your ideas, how you develop your mindset, how you form new habits and skills in your own life. Maybe you mentioned some books or movies that inspire you.
I read a lot of autobiographies, a lot of books on commerce. My personal passion is what we call biblical history. I like to read about religion as an academic, not as a religious functionary. But I found the key to everything is good friends. Whenever you get a chance, even if it's every day, 10 minutes, that's been my key. May work, may not work for you. I don't know, but I will always go for a cup of coffee with a buddy of mine. And I figured that is therapy there for you. And sometimes all you need to do is chat with your buddies and you're fresh again and you go back to life, and that's the key for me. So I may work out, exercise, but it's all with my friends, and we're an old bunch of friends. So you may not do any business together, but when you chat with them every day, they will help. They will tell you things which, because they are not, let's put it this way, they have nothing to gain from it. They are as your friends. And sometimes, you may be very blindsided to a lot of issues, and you chat and the weight on your shoulders becomes lighter, and you go back and you come up with a fresh idea. So friends, key to your life. Talk to them, talk to people. I turn up talking to lots of people just in a cafe, and it's brilliant. For me, that's been the key.
Jungbir, so do we become like people we surround ourselves, right? So we become
we're social animals. We have to surround ourselves with people. So you have to talk to people. They will tell you what's wrong with you. You may like it, you may not like it, but you need somebody to tell you. Otherwise, your mind will play tricks with you.
So I think it's learnable skill, right? It's like communication skill is learnable.
Very much.
Entrepreneurship is learnable skill. But what would you recommend to young entrepreneurs, Jungbir? They are not sure they should.
I think do anything and everything you can do in your life, physically. And also, if you're going to be stuck and the only thing that you want to make money and increase your portfolio or your value net worth, I think you are going to be doomed, because you'll never get a chance to enjoy it. So life is a balance, and we are made out to work. The human body is made to work. You enjoy life, you got to have friends. So the key is balance. I believe that you should have balance in everything. You should have adequate friends. So if you work too much and all the time, it's going to show on you. Likewise, if you're partying all the time, it is going to show on you. But what that balance is, I cannot tell you, because my balance may be different than yours. And everybody has to find that. So you have to make your peace with yourself, and only do what makes you happy. That's it. If it doesn't, you should take a step back and reanalyze.
Jungbir, if you could go back in 2001,
Mm-hmm.
would you change something in your life, in your choices, decisions?
Well, I'm a big science fiction, quantum physics kind of guy, so I don't think so very much. Because if I change something, then I don't know the consequences of that action, how it would be in the future. So if I don't know how that would pan out, so I think whatever we did was the best. So, and that goes for everybody. And I mean, this is a question you face a lot of times, but I don't think anybody can. Even if anybody says that I would have done another thing, it means nothing, because it's already done, and there is no alternative path. You have just one path. You've done your future is the consequence of your actions today.
Right. Jungbir, so do you have any goals, or you living in the flow? You just
No,
believe
I
it?
do have goals. I have goals. I try and acquire new skills every day. I try and read more. I try and better my game of golf. I try and be a better shoot on the range. So there's a constant endeavor to keep getting better. Keeping in mind that I'm getting older too. But as far as business is concerned, yes, I want to grow the business and get into more airports. But let's put it this way: I'm not going to sacrifice a certain part of my life for doing that. You know, I try my best. You get greedy, without a doubt, everybody does, but I try and force myself to contentment. That if it doesn't happen, then this is good too.
Janbir, I think you know much more than 95% in the world. So have you ever thought about our future? How is our world will look like maybe in 50 years or in 20 years? Do you know
Um,
what's going on?
what are you asking for? What I think, which way business will go, or I mean, I couldn't understand the question in its clarity.
Yeah, businesses and life and the world in general.
Oh, I'm an optimist, absolute optimist. And human beings are made to survive. So we survived an ice age. I think we can do this. So things will get, and it always gets better. We make a lot of movies which are apocalyptic, but that's just to remind us that this could happen too. So if we were not that intelligent, then we would have already polluted the world beyond redemption. So there's this constant struggle between greed and having a good life, and that keeps going on. And I think eventually, just common sense and basic intelligence always wins. And I think as human beings, I think we have a great future in the thing. Lives become much better. I mean, earlier pollution used to be a lot more. We become very, let's put it, the next two generations behind me are so much more aware than what we were. We were a lot more reckless. We didn't care if our cars were smoking. The newer kids won't even buy a gas combustion car. They would go electric. So yeah, I'm very optimistic. We will turn. The world is turning for the better.
I've been in India back in 2015, and I had a privilege to be on the stage in Jaipur
Hmm.
with the Global Leadership Summit, and I like it very much. It's unusual culture, nice people, and you mentioned that yeah, it's going to be like the second largest economy in the world. I think so. So, what's the secret of success of India? What's this
You really want to know
strongest?
what I think? Well, let me really tell you. So let me ask you this question. So when you were in India, and you must have seen, we're a poor country. We have lots of poor people. But anybody who was begging on the street or wherever they met you, and they were, they're pretty poor. Did you see anybody without a smile whenever they met you? These guys are poor. I mean, they're begging on the street. And what I believe, the key for that is that it's the Indian way of life. And that is, it's called karma. And we don't believe this is, we are one life biological beings. What happens with that is that it puts our mind to rest. So I believe that rebellion and conflict happen when people see that between the haves and the have-nots. And if you are in a very in dire poverty, you will rebel only because you will ask the question, why me? And why is this happening to me? And you will get to arms and then violence, et cetera, et cetera. But why that to a great extent doesn't happen, and India is one of the largest mixes of religion in the world in 1.3 billion people. We should be a meltdown long ago. But it's because of the Hindu way of life, where they believe that this life is driven by the actions of our past life. And so a guy who's on the street and has no food and he's begging, he has accepted predominantly that I wasn't such a good person in the last life, and I have to go through this. This is my redemption. And if I'm good now, then the next life will get better. And so what happens with that is you're fundamentally in your mind, that challenge for rebellion goes away. You've accepted. The moment you accept your problems, half the problem is gone. So I believe it's the Indian ethos. It's the way we believe in karma that helps us a lot.
Wow, beautiful. Jungbir, and you're a great role model for a lot of people. And I really like to talk with you. You're a very optimistic, positive, nice person. What would you say to Russian-speaking audience who watching this interview and introduced to you?
Well, Russia is one of the superpowers in the world. Ups and downs do happen, but the culture, the background, the repository of music, literature, it surpasses America by hundreds of years. So, that helps in the evolution of being Russian. So I think that, and the amount of technology which comes out of Russia. So, ups and downs do happen, but I believe that Russia is here to stay.
Jungbir, and I think another question for people who would love to invest in some projects and startups you mentioned before, what would you recommend to maybe buy stocks or oil companies or banks?
So I don't have too much faith I wouldn't invest in oil companies anymore. I would invest in, I'm old school when it comes to business. I don't believe the new model of business where you have a burn rate and there's market capitalization and you sell from one equity company to another till the music stops. Eventually somebody is going to be left with a bucket of really bad fruit, which makes no money. So at the end of the day, you have to make money. The fundamental industries for human beings, food, etc., are there, but technology is going to be the key. Now, what kind of technologies? A lot of technologies are going to die on the way, but there are a lot which are going to surpass. Climate change, if you find a way to economically degrade plastics, I think you're sitting on your big gold mine there. So plastics are cheap to produce, but so expensive to dispose of. So, there is just so much industry out there. But like I said, we have to unlearn. We can't depend on, natural minerals so much. We have to find efficiency in recycling. And so that's going to be a great part. Medicine's going to be tremendous. I mean, thing is, we may have coronavirus, but we still don't have a vaccine for HIV. And we still don't have a cure for most of the fundamental disease. So okay, just to tell you an example. In the coronavirus, what is the first thing which the whole world has done? The only thing which they are sure of. It's called social distancing.
Right.
Social distancing was what they used in the Middle Ages for the plague and for leprosy. So in spite of science having changed from the Middle Ages till now, what is the first thing we do? We're using what they used in the Middle Ages, social distancing. So see, we've gone back to the fundamentals. That means sometimes the book takes you back to page 1. We still don't know what the hell to do. So we distance. So in the Middle Ages, if you had leprosy or anything, you were sent outside the city or people stayed away from you. And that's exactly what we're doing in this day and age. So much more to be done, so much of a gap has to be filled. So we've advanced in medicine and yet we moved nothing.
Jungbir, thank you very much for this conversation, for your time and inspiration.
Thank you, Pavel. It was great talking to you.
Great talking with you, and we look forward to welcome you here in Russia.
It'll be my pleasure. I hope to see you very soon then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.